It's a record that will never be broken. On November 6th, 1921, football fans were treated to the debut of the Tonawanda Cardex, also known as the Tonawanda Lumbermen, a squad based just outside of Buffalo, New York. The team's name came from the American Cardex Office Furniture Company, which was sponsoring them. The Cardex, aka Lumbermen, were absolutely steamrolled by the Rochester Jeffersons 45-0 and promptly folded. With just one football game to their credit and a win percentage of 0.0, they are the shortest-lived and least successful pro football franchise in history. But they are far from the weirdest. Hi, I'm Erin McCarthy, Editor-in-Chief of Mental Floss, and on this episode of The List Show, we're going to exhaust a lot of sports metaphors running down the most obscure, strange, defunct, and forgotten sports teams of yore. Let's play ball because this video promises to be a slam dunk. I'm not doing it. Roll the intro. How obscure were the Cardex? NFL.com lists question marks next to the names of some of the players, which is really kind of mean. In fairness, the Cardex played for the American Professional Football Association, which was the precursor to the NFL. And while they dipped out extremely quickly, it was not that uncommon at the time for pro sports teams to form, play a game or two, and then fold due to lack of financial resources, talent, or both. Cardex, the company, only paid for the team's uniforms, not for salaries or any other equipment. Another misbegotten football franchise was the Providence Steam Roller, and yes, that's singular, not plural. Apparently, the players made for one collective machine of destruction rather than several smaller ones. The Steamroller competed in the NFL for 7 seasons from 1925 to 1931, and played in the Cycledrome in Rhode Island, a now-closed arena originally intended for bicycle racing. It turned out to not be ideal for football, as the tracks cut the corners of the end zones and the seats were so close to the action that sometimes players steamrolled fans. The Steamroller were pretty good, earning a league championship in 1928 based on their win percentage. In 1929, they played what's believed to be the first ever night game in NFL history. Thanks to the 1929 stock market crash, the team disbanded 2 years later, but its name lived on. A pre-NBA basketball franchise dubbed the Providence Steamrollers popped up in the late 1940s and lasted only 3 seasons. Maybe the name is cursed? Don't think football has the market cornered on bizarre franchises. The Cleveland Spiders were the pariahs of baseball at the turn of the 20th century. In 1899, they succeeded, if you want to call it that, in earning the worst single-season record in the history of the game, going 20 to 134. The team was so deficient in even the most basic fundamentals of baseball that they played mostly on the road because they couldn't attract a crowd to their home games. One had about 70 people in attendance. It wasn't always this way. The Spiders started out as a fierce and feared squad who had such a heated rivalry with the Baltimore Orioles that the Spiders needed a police escort in Baltimore. But then Spiders owner Frank Robeson bought another team with the adorable name of the St. Louis Perfectos and thought it would be a good idea to send most of his good players to Missouri. This had the consequence of gutting the Spiders' talent pool. That's when the Spiders became something of a league joke. Cleveland eventually got its mojo back with the Cleveland Naps, which was named after its star player, Napoleon LaJoie, and not, as I assumed, an ode to the mid-afternoon snooze. When LaJoie left the team in 1914, they became the Cleveland Indians and are currently known as the Cleveland Guardians. We cannot depart Cleveland without mentioning the Cleveland Infants, a single-season baseball team from 1890 that sported blue and pink uniforms and were nicknamed the Babes. The 1800s, everyone. Continuing a storied legacy of team names apparently thought up in a drunken haze, the Macon Whoopees were an ice hockey team out of Macon, Georgia that originated in 1973 as part of the newly formed Southern Hockey League. The name was a play on a song titled Macon Whoopee, which is a euphemism for sex. Macon, you get it. The name had the desired effect of getting publicity, including mentions on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, as well as t-shirts that popped up in Richard Nixon's White House. We had a photo of Nixon wearing the shirt, believe me, we'd show it to you. Unfortunately, the Whoopees didn't draw big crowds, which prompted owner Gerald Pinkerton to contemplate moving the team elsewhere. But when your team name is all about that pun, where else are you gonna go? In fact, even though they played less than a season owing to cash flow problems, the name was too good to abandon. The team returned to Macon in 1996, this time dropping the S, and played through 2001. The Worcester Worcesters came together in 1880 as the result of a novel way of raising money. The city of Worcester, Massachusetts sold stock in the baseball team so the area would have representation in the National League. And while they only played 2 seasons, the team was pretty good. Pitcher Lee Richmond was the first to deliver a perfect game in the history of Major League Baseball, totally owning the Cleveland Blues. who would later be known as the Cleveland Spiders, but we've already explained all that, and we're not going to go through it again. He did this even though he was still a student at Brown University and played a game with friends at 5 in the morning, just hours before the team faced the Blues. The Worcester Worcesters were later renamed the Boosters, but they could have also been called the Worcester Tattletales. They allegedly ratted out the Cincinnati Reds in 1880 for serving beer at games, which was prohibited at the time. The Reds wound up being kicked out of the league. Baseball had a lot of trouble filling out teams during World War I. In West Virginia, there were just 4 minor league teams playing, including the Piedmont-Westernport Drybugs, named after an insect that was believed to live near the Potomac River. No such bug existed, however, making the Drybugs possibly the only pro sports team to be named after an entomological error. The team only had 2 weeks to put a roster together. And before long, half of the players announced they were quitting to seek better paying work. We know, calling any team the Indians is an unfortunate historical footnote. But the Oorang Indians out of Ohio practically demand to be mentioned. For one thing, the football team was actually made up of Native Americans. Second, virtually the sole reason for its existence wasn't for love of the game. It was mainly to advertise and sell puppies. The Indians were owned by Walter Lingo of LaRue, Ohio. In 1922, he paid $100 for the rights to an NFL franchise and brought on football legend Jim Thorpe, himself a Native American, to be a player and coach. Lingo also owned a kennel for the Airedale breed of dog. He believed the team's games would be an excellent marketing gimmick for peddling his canines. At halftime, he even had dogs come out to perform a stunt show in which they'd chase raccoons up fake trees. And it worked. One year, Lingo sold 15,000 Airedales. Unfortunately, Lingo also trafficked in demeaning Native American stereotypes, including halftime stunts like tomahawk throwing. It's just as well the team folded after just 2 seasons. Everyone loves the wacky hijinks of the Harlem Globetrotters, the traveling exhibition basketball team that plays cruel jokes on their hapless foes, the Washington Generals. One of the team's star players in the 1940s and 1950s was Marcus Haynes, who was thought to be the greatest dribbler in the game. But when Haynes had a contract dispute with the team in 1953, he left to join a rival theatrical hoop squad, the Harlem Magicians. Keep in mind this was a time before so-called serious basketball was serious business. People went to be entertained, and both the Globetrotters and Magicians indulged them. In 1957, the Magicians sold so many tickets in Mexico City that they played 3 games in one day. But the Globetrotters weren't loving the competition. Globetrotters owner Abe Saperstein kept up a series of legal full-court presses on the Magicians, which led to their sporadic activity. Saperstein argued the Magicians were in violation of his trademarks, which included Magicians of Basketball and Harlem. Haynes rejoined the Globetrotters in 1972 and later reformed the Magicians in the 1980s. Remember the Tonawanda Car Decks, the team named after a furniture store? They're not the only old-timey team that took a cue from the corporate world. The Jacksonville T-Men, formerly known as the New England T-Men, were an expansion team for the North American Soccer League beginning in 1978. Who owned them? Lipton, the popular tea brand. The team name made sense for New England. Think Boston Tea Party. But the team's move to Jacksonville rendered it a little confusing. Florida is not exactly known for its tea. The T-Men played through 1982, and 2 years later, the NASL shut down completely. Quick! Name a pro team from one of the Big 4 leagues based in Iowa. Can't do it? That's because there aren't any. But not long ago, the state did have an NBA team, the Waterloo Hawks. The Hawks competed in the NBA's first ever full season in 1949. Unfortunately, they fell victim to team owners in larger markets that wanted to scuttle teams from smaller parts of the country. Hence, the Hawks joining teams from Anderson, Indiana and Sheboygan, Wisconsin as collateral damage. Soccer was sweeping the nation back in the 1970s. Or sweeping Denver, at least. That's where the Caribous of Colorado got their start. The name came from the Caribou Ranch, a recording studio founded by marketing specialist and Caribou's co-founder Jim Guercio. Because the ranch was Western themed, so was the soccer team, right down to tasseled brown and tan player jerseys. Problem with the fringes? Opposing players kept grabbing them, forcing the team to trim them down. The Caribou also wore cowboy hats during their entrance because, as we all know, grizzled cowboys of the Old West loved their soccer. The Caribous finished last in their first season and were soon sold to media mogul Ted Turner, who relocated them to Atlanta and dropped the Clint Eastwood aesthetic. In 2014, the Colorado Rapids soccer team announced they'd be wearing the retro Caribous fringe jerseys, which prompted a lot of excited feedback from fans who had fond memories of the saloon soccer style. They were disappointed to learn it was just an April Fool's joke. By the way, while our focus here was on extinct sports teams, we wanted to shout out the active minor league and college teams whose names bring us a large amount of joy. Thanks go out to the Long Beach State Dirtbags, the UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs, the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, the Hartford Yard Goats, the Rocket City Trash Pandas, the Boise Boogers, and the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. One of those we made up, but you probably won't be able to tell without looking it up. Thanks for watching this episode of The List Show. Make sure to subscribe to Mental Floss to stay up to date with all things odd, interesting, and fun. We'll see you next time.